The text message arrived at 8:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night, the kind of mundane exchange that happens millions of times daily. But this one was different. This one changed everything. I bought some sweet potatoes in case you wanted sweet potato casserole, but I forgot to get pecans, so if you want some, get some. The sender was 29-year-old Sarah Mitchell, a Colorado mother who had vanished without a trace 3 days earlier. The receiver was her fiancé, Mark Hamilton, who had just reported her missing. The problem was Sarah never called her grandfather by his first name. Never. Not once in the 8 years. They'd been together. Detective Maria Bill had been investigating missing person cases for 12 years. But she'd never encountered anything like this. The text wasn't just suspicious, it was impossible. Sarah's grandfather was Grandpa, or Papa, never Stan. The message had been sent from Sarah's phone, but Sarah hadn't sent it. The investigation that followed would reveal a calculated deception, a systematic cover-up, and a murder plot so cold-blooded that even seasoned detectives would struggle to comprehend its scope. The text message wasn't just evidence. It was a confession written in digital ink, a roadmap to a killer who'd come chillingly close to getting away with murder. But the text message was only the beginning. What investigators would discover in the coming weeks would expose not just a killer's identity, but a systematic plan to eliminate obstacles, create false alibis, and manipulate evidence in ways that tested the boundaries of forensic science. The final text message revealed a twist no one saw coming. The victim's phone had become a weapon. The digital evidence a key to unlocking a conspiracy that spanned months and involved multiple participants. The sender wasn't Sarah Mitchell, it was her killer. And the message wasn't about sweet potatoes, it was about murder. Maplewood Heights was the kind of upper-middle-class suburb where careers were built and families appeared perfect. The Mitchell-Hamilton house sat on a cul-de-sac. 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, 3-car garage, with a meticulously maintained lawn and Christmas decorations that changed with the seasons. Sarah Mitchell and Mark Hamilton had been together for 8 years, engaged for 2. Both were successful, Sarah as a marketing director for a tech startup, Mark as a pharmaceutical sales representative. They drove matching BMWs, vacationed in Europe, and were planning an October wedding that would be the social event of the season. But beneath the surface, cracks were forming. Sarah had recently discovered Mark's affair with his personal trainer, 26-year-old Jessica Ryan. She'd confronted him 6 weeks before her disappearance, threatening to call off the wedding and demanding he move out. Mark had responded by hiring an attorney and beginning to catalog their assets. The couple had no children, but shared custody of a golden retriever named Bailey. Their finances were substantial. Sarah's life insurance policy was worth $1.5 million, with additional investments and retirement accounts totaling nearly $3 million. Mark stood to inherit everything if Sarah died before the wedding was called off. Neighbors described them as private but polite. The couple entertained regularly, traveled frequently, and appeared to maintain the successful facade that Maplewood Heights demanded. No one heard arguments. No one saw violence. No one suspected that Mark had been planning Sarah's murder for months. The facade would shatter, with one text message that revealed a killer, using his victim's own phone to create a false narrative, one that would unravel with mathematical precision as investigators followed the digital trail. December 18, 2023, began like any other Monday in Maplewood Heights. Sarah left for her marketing job at 7:30 a.m. as usual, returning home by 5:15 p.m. Mark claimed she sent him a text at 6:47 p.m. saying she was going to visit her mother and might stay overnight. That was the last anyone heard from her. Sarah's disappearance followed a familiar pattern. She was last seen in public grocery shopping with her daughter on Sunday afternoon. Security footage showed her entering the store at 2:15 p.m., exiting at 2:47 p.m., loading groceries into her car, and driving away. She appeared normal, composed, showing no signs of distress. The text messages that followed told a different story. At 8:47 p.m. on Tuesday, 3 days after Sarah vanished, Mark received the sweet potato message. The timing was crucial. He'd just filed the missing person report that morning, telling detectives Sarah had left to visit her mother and never returned. The message seemed designed to establish several things. Sarah was alive. She was conducting normal activities. She was thinking about Mark, and she was geographically close enough to shop for groceries. It was the perfect alibi message, except for one fatal flaw. Sarah's mother, when questioned, said Sarah had never arrived for a visit. She'd never called, never texted, never showed up at the house 3 hours away in Boulder. The supposed overnight visit was completely fictional, but the text messages continued. Over the next week, Mark received 4 more texts from Sarah's phone, each one building the narrative that she'd left voluntarily, was staying with friends, and needed space to think about their relationship. One message mentioned taking a break from wedding planning. Another referenced needing time to clear her head. The messages were textbook examples of staged communications. They referenced specific activities, shopping, cooking, visiting friends, mentioned concrete plans, wedding postponement, relationship discussions, and included personal details, sweet potato casserole, mutual friends, that made them seem authentic. Mark's behavior raised immediate flags. He consented to a search of his phone without hesitation. He provided detailed statements about Sarah's mental state, her recent stress levels, her concerns about the wedding. He speculated about postpartum depression, midlife crisis, even suggested she might have started drinking again, a problem she'd overcome years earlier. When detectives asked about recent relationship problems, Mark admitted the affair but painted himself as the victim. Sarah was unpredictable, he claimed. She had a temper. She could be vindictive. Maybe this is her way of punishing me. The investigation revealed more contradictions. Sarah's car was found in the long-term parking lot at Denver International Airport, a location she hated using because of the distance from their house. Her phone had pinged off towers in 3 different states over 3 days, a pattern that suggested someone was traveling with it. Her credit cards showed no activity, her bank accounts were untouched, her social media accounts went silent. But the most damning evidence came from technology. Sarah's fitness tracker, an Apple Watch that monitored her heart rate and activity levels, showed her last recorded movement at 7:23 p.m. on Monday, December 18th. After that, nothing. The device had simply stopped recording data, as if it had been removed and discarded. Her phone told a different story. Location data showed it traveling 200 miles to the airport, then bouncing between cell towers in Colorado, Utah, and Wyoming over the next week. Someone was using Sarah's phone to create a false trail while Sarah herself had vanished. The digital forensics would reveal the shocking truth. Sarah had been dead for days when the text messages started arriving. Her killer had been using her phone to construct a false narrative, sending messages designed to mislead investigators while systematically eliminating evidence of the crime. The case that began with one suspicious text message would expose a murder plot involving affairs, insurance fraud, and a killer who understood that in the digital age, the perfect alibi could be constructed one text at a time. Lead investigator Maria Bill approached the case systematically. Sarah Mitchell's digital footprint told a story more complete than any witness statement. Every call, text, data ping, and location service was logged and analyzed. The results were illuminating. The timeline was crucial. Sarah's Apple Watch recorded her last heart rate reading at 7:23 p.m. On December 18th, her phone stopped transmitting location data at 7:19 p.m., 4 minutes before the final heart rate reading. Someone had powered down the device deliberately, but not before the fitness tracker had recorded Sarah's death. The text messages that followed told a different story. The sweet potato message at 8:47 p.m. on December 21st was just the beginning. Over the next week, 4 more texts arrived from Sarah's phone, each one carefully crafted to build the narrative of a woman leaving her relationship voluntarily. But the messages contained errors that revealed their true nature. The sweet potato message referred to Sarah's grandfather as Stan, a name she never used. A subsequent message mentioned their friend Jennifer, but used a nickname Sarah had never employed. Another text referenced the restaurant Giuseppe's, but called it Gino's, a mistake Sarah would never make. The location data was equally revealing. Sarah's phone traveled to Denver International Airport on December 19th, then began a systematic journey through 3 states. The ping pattern suggested someone was driving with the phone, stopping at gas stations, restaurants, and hotels, creating a false trail that could be traced but never verified. The most sophisticated evidence came from forensic analysis of the text messages themselves. Linguistic experts determined that the writing style, vocabulary choices, and message construction matched Mark Hamilton's communication patterns more closely than Sarah's. The texts used phrases Mark favored, punctuation he preferred, and sentence structures that aligned with his writing style. Technical analysis revealed more. The timing of the messages was too regular, always sent at times when Mark had solid alibis. The content was too calculated. Each message advanced the narrative of voluntary departure while avoiding specific details that could be verified. The phone calls that accompanied the text went straight to voicemail, suggesting the caller knew Sarah wouldn't answer. Cell tower analysis provided the smoking gun. Sarah's phone had pinged off towers near Mark Hamilton's workplace, his gym, and his favorite restaurants, not locations Sarah would have chosen. The device had been used to create a false trail that led away from the real crime scene while providing Mark with an alibi. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, Sarah's work computer. In the days before her disappearance, she'd been researching divorce attorneys specializing in high-asset cases. She'd scheduled consultations for the week after she vanished. She'd also drafted an email to her insurance agent, requesting changes to her life insurance beneficiaries, changes that would have removed Mark from the policy entirely. The email was never sent. It was saved in her drafts folder, time-stamped 6:34 p.m. on December 18th, the evening she disappeared. Someone had prevented her from sending it, just as they'd prevented her from making the changes that would have cost Mark $1.5 million, and investigators also discovered. Mark had been researching methods to disable Apple Watches and iPhones without triggering security alerts. His search history included queries about factory, reset without password, remove Apple ID, remotely, and disable Find My iPhone permanently. He'd also searched for life insurance payout timeline and missing person declaration death benefits. The evidence painted a clear picture. Mark had planned Sarah's murder for months, studying the technology he'd need to manipulate, understanding the insurance implications, and preparing a comprehensive cover-up. The text messages weren't random. They were the final act in a carefully orchestrated conspiracy. But the investigation revealed something more disturbing. Mark hadn't acted alone. The breakthrough came from analyzing Mark Hamilton's phone records. Investigators expected to find calls to Jessica Ryan, his personal trainer and alleged lover. What they discovered was far more complex. Mark had been communicating with 3 different women simultaneously, each relationship carefully compartmentalized. Jessica Ryan was just one piece of a larger puzzle. The others included his ex-wife, Jennifer, who'd remained close despite their divorce, and a woman named Lauren who worked at his insurance company. But the most revealing communication wasn't with any of these women. It was with a prepaid cell phone that had been purchased 3 weeks before Sarah's disappearance. The phone was registered under a fake name, paid for with cash, and used exclusively for communications with Mark's actual accomplice. The prepaid phone had sent and received exactly 47 messages over 3 weeks. Each message was brief, coded, and carefully timed. They discussed the project, the timeline, the cleanup, and the payout, references that became clear only after Sarah's disappearance. The shocking revelation: Mark's accomplice wasn't his lover. It was his business partner, David William, a man Sarah had trusted completely. David had been present at Mark and Sarah's engagement party, their housewarming, their anniversary dinners. He'd been systematically betraying Sarah while pretending to be her friend. David's role became clear through forensic analysis of their business communications. He and Mark had been embezzling from their joint ventures for 2 years, siphoning money into offshore accounts while Sarah remained oblivious. The insurance money from her death would cover their tracks and provide the capital they needed to expand their operation. But David had his own agenda. The text messages revealed he was planning to double-cross Mark, taking the insurance money while allowing Mark to take the fall for Sarah's murder. The final text message, the sweet potato message, had been David's idea, sent from Sarah's phone while Mark was establishing his alibi. The evidence painted a picture of systematic betrayal. Two business partners who'd turned to murder to solve their financial problems, each planning to sacrifice the other when the time was right. Sarah had been caught between predators who understood that the perfect murder required not just a killer, but a scapegoat. The investigation revealed more disturbing details. David had been researching poisons in the weeks before Sarah's death, looking for substances that would mimic natural causes. He'd apparently abandoned the poison plan in favor of violence, but the research showed premeditation and methodical planning. Physical evidence confirmed their partnership. David's fingerprints were found on the tape used to bind Sarah's wrists. His DNA was discovered on clothing fibers found at the burial site. His car had been captured on traffic cameras following Sarah's phone to the airport, creating the false trail that misdirected investigators for crucial days. The most damning evidence came from a recorded conversation. David had been wearing a wire for 3 weeks as part of an unrelated investigation into their business practices. The recording captured him discussing Sarah's murder with clinical detachment, referring to her as the problem that needed permanent solution. But the final revelation was the most shocking. Sarah's last text message hadn't been sent by her killers. It had been sent by Sarah herself, hours before her death, to a private investigator she'd hired to follow Mark. The message was coded, intentionally misleading, designed to provide evidence if something happened to her. Sarah had known she was in danger. She'd documented Mark's affair, his financial crimes, his threats against her life. The text message that broke the case wasn't evidence of murder. It was evidence of a victim's desperate attempt to leave a trail for investigators to follow. The case that began with one suspicious text message ended with the revelation of a victim who'd understood her peril and prepared for her death with methodical precision. Sarah had turned her own phone into a witness, her final message into a key that would unlock a conspiracy involving multiple killers, financial fraud, and systematic betrayal. The trials of Mark Hamilton and David William began simultaneously in September 2024, two separate proceedings that would test the boundaries of conspiracy law and digital evidence interpretation. District Attorney Richard Phillips presented the prosecution's theory. Two business partners had conspired to murder Sarah Mitchell as part of a systematic plan to cover financial fraud and collect insurance money. The evidence, he argued, wasn't just compelling, it was unprecedented in its scope and technological sophistication. The prosecution presented their case methodically. First, digital forensics experts explained how the defendants had used technology to construct false alibis while systematically eliminating evidence. Then, telecommunications specialists detailed the phone records that documented the conspiracy's timeline. Finally, financial analysts traced money flows that revealed the defendants' motivations. Mark Hamilton's defense team, led by prominent attorney Victoria Hastings, presented an aggressive but problematic strategy. They didn't deny the affair or the financial problems but argued that Sarah had left voluntarily, that Mark was being framed by business competitors, that the text messages were being misinterpreted by overzealous investigators. The defense called character witnesses who described Mark as a devoted partner, successful professional, and community volunteer. They presented him as a victim of circumstance, targeted by investigators who'd focused on the wrong suspect despite evidence suggesting alternative explanations. David Williams' defense was more straightforward. He claimed ignorance of any murder plot, suggested Mark had acted alone, and argued that his business communications were being misinterpreted as evidence of conspiracy. He admitted to financial improprieties but denied any knowledge of violence. But both defense teams faced insurmountable evidence problems. The wire recording captured David discussing Sarah's murder with clinical detachment. The text message analysis showed Mark's writing style and messages supposedly from Sarah. The financial records documented systematic fraud that would have been exposed by Sarah's insurance. Changes. The turning point came when the prosecution played the recorded conversations between David and Mark, their casual discussion of the problem that needed permanent solution was devastating evidence that couldn't be explained away as business. Communications. David's decision not to testify was telling. While defendants aren't required to testify, his silence left the prosecution's narrative unchallenged. Mark's testimony, by contrast, was a disaster. He contradicted himself repeatedly, couldn't explain the evidence against him, and appeared cold rather than grieving. The defense's expert witnesses attempted to challenge the digital evidence interpretation, suggesting technical malfunctions or alternative explanations for the phone records and text messages. But their testimony crumbled under cross-examination as prosecution experts demonstrated the specificity and reliability of the evidence. The most compelling evidence was Sarah's own preparation, her documentation of Mark's affair, her research into their financial crimes, her communications with the private investigator. All of it supported the prosecution's theory while demonstrating Sarah's awareness of the danger she faced. The jury deliberated for 8 hours. Their questions revealed their focus. They wanted to understand how systematic betrayal could operate undetected for so long, how technology could be weaponized to construct false narratives, how community trust could be perverted so completely. The verdicts were unanimous, guilty on all counts for both defendants. Mark Hamilton received life without parole plus 40 years. David William received life without parole plus 30 years. The consecutive sentences ensured both would die in prison. The sentencing phase revealed more disturbing details. Victim impact statements from Sarah's family described a woman who'd understood her danger but couldn't escape it. The judge's comments were scathing. You didn't just murder Sarah, you corrupted every system you touched. You used trust as a weapon and technology as a tool for evil. The Mitchell case concluded in December 2024, but its implications continue reverberating through courtrooms nationwide. The conviction established precedents for digital evidence interpretation, text message analysis, and conspiracy charges involving technology manipulation. The case also highlighted the double-edged nature of modern technology. Sarah's killers had used her own devices to construct a false narrative, but those same devices provided the evidence that convicted them. Every text message, phone call, data transfer, and digital interaction left a trail that documented their conspiracy. But beyond legal technicalities, the Mitchell case reveals something disturbing about contemporary relationships. The defendants had appeared successful, enviable even. Their social media profiles showed happy couple photos, professional achievements, community involvement. Behind the digital facade, murder was being planned with methodical precision. The betrayal was comprehensive. Mark had manipulated not just Sarah, but entire social circles, business relationships, and community networks. He'd understood that in the digital age, the perfect alibi could be constructed, one text at a time, but that same digital trail would provide the evidence to solve the crime. The text message that broke the case was brief, a simple request about sweet potatoes that revealed its sender knew nothing about Sarah's life, her family, or her habits. It was a mistake that exposed a conspiracy, a flaw that unraveled months of planning, the key that unlocked systematic evil. The documentary closes with Detective Bill's final reflection. Technology enables perfect crimes, but it also enables perfect investigations. Every digital interaction leaves evidence. Every text message tells a story. The challenge is learning to read what the technology is trying to tell us before it's too late.